So I want to start out by just kind of getting a sense of what's going on with the baseball program this summer, and then moving into the fall, leading up to baseball season. Tell us about what's going on.
Well, it's been last year ended up, then the year was great. I wish it could have turned out a little bit better. We lost 2 games there in the tournament in the very, very last inning against a team we beat four times during the season, but I think we kind of built off that because I brought guys in, last year that are, were a lot of transfer guys that were good players, and I think it kind of helped with everything that I was doing this year. So this year will be really the first year of all my guys. So hopefully it turns out good, or it might look bad on me, but I think we got a good group. I got a lot of good pitchers. I kind of changed my mentality a little bit with the pitching part of it, and instead of trying to find the guy that throws 95, let's get these guys that throw 86 to 90 that know how to pitch. Yeah. And I think pitching was the one thing last year. During the middle of the week, we just couldn't compete with certain teams, and my conference pitchers were really good, and so I think I brought in a good group of core guys that can pitch to go along with. A lot of guys there. My one main guy that I wanted to get was Nicholas Peters, which is a catcher from Helena, and Nick will be, he'll be there. He's amazing, good defense, can hit, and then everything around him with the guys coming back that were great players, Cole Payne and Gresham Baker. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's so much about velo these days, and sounds like you're kind of changing your philosophy just a little bit.
Well, I don't know if I've ever changed my philosophy. It's hard to hit those guys that throw hard if they can throw the ball over the plate. But, I was an 88 to 91 guy, high school, first got in pro ball 90, 94, and then you learn to pitch. And so many times now you flip on the TV and you're watching an SEC baseball game, you see a guy throw 95, 98. That's ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, ball 4, and then a double in the gap next pitch or something like that. So I think the game is kind of changing a little bit. It's going back to some of these guys that know how to pitch. I think I saw some guys in the draft that were drafted pretty early that are low to mid 90s that just know how to pitch. Is a key.
Well, and then you got the kid from the Brewers last night at the All-Star game that he hit 102.
Right.
So and you saw some of the other guys in the dugout. They were just amazed by how hard that guy was throwing.
Yeah,
I can't even pronounce his last name, so I'm not even.
Mizorowski or whatever.
And he's Mizorowski.
Mizorowski, and he's young, and I mean. Hopefully he can hold that up, but I think he only had 5 games in the big leagues before making the All-Star game. I think so, but bright future ahead of him.
I mean, this is kind of I ask people this all the time, but I mean, there's so many pitchers that are having to have Tommy John surgery. I mean, it's just. Going back to when you grew up, and I mean, you grew up in kind of the Nolan Ryan era, and I mean, pitch count was not that big of a deal, and there wasn't a 4 or 5 man rotation. Right. How are things changing, and how is that affected pitchers these days?
Well, it's funny you ask that because I'm speaking next week with the Alabama High School Athletics Association. I'm going to speak on this. They don't know I'm speaking on this, but that's what I'm going to speak on, and. You see a lot of guys blowing out now. Their arms are going faster. Guys are stronger, bigger, because there's a lot more things out there for them to do that. But the way I'm kind of looking at things is I don't think guys train their body the right way now to keep that from happening. So my physical therapist and she has a program that's set up that she's one of the only 2 people in Alabama that have it. So she'll put them, you'll have sensors on your body like I used to have when you do a video game, and it kind of shows everything going on. And she puts them through a 4 or 5 tests, and it kind of tells the deficiencies on your body, where you're weak at, where you're strong at, and what you got to do to counterbalance and things like that. So, I've been using that, and I think that things like that will help. Will help prevent things. I mean, guys are always going to blow out because it's just not a comfortable thing to throw a baseball, but. I think when you start to strengthen the core parts of your body and the parts that are weak, I think it'll help prevent a lot of things.
Do you think pitchers are throwing enough? I mean, you go back, go way back. Yeah. I mean, go back to Walter Johnson days. I mean, those guys they threw, 200-300, maybe not 300 pitches, but I mean 200, not a big deal,
Yeah, well, Nolan Ryan, his first no hitter in the big leagues, it was 244 pitches or something like that, something crazy. And people ask that, and I agree. I mean, I think everybody's body's different. You know what I'm saying? And I used to throw 200 pitch bullpens. It was weird. I mean, I throw two, but I would never tell anybody to do that. I mean, I just did that in the off season, trying to train myself. And but now, guys, my first coach in the minor leagues, pitching coach, Mike Caldwell. He had 20 complete games one year in the big leagues, and it's just things you just don't hear that anymore. Yeah, guys get to the sixth inning, or if you can go six, it's quality to start now, and you get to the sixth and give it to the bullpen for the seventh, eighth, and ninth.
How big of a deal is pitch count for you? How do you make that assessment when to pull a guy? Yeah. Is it kind of feel, or are you very stat driven? How do you approach that?
A little bit of all of it, I guess. I'm not an analytic guy, but it's. You kind of know when you're a guy because every guy's different, And I had a guy last year, my best pitcher, Gavin Chandler. He was 11-1, 12-1 on the year, and I let him sometimes. He went, I think, max 125, 128, and you do start to see things. You start to see tendencies, and not necessarily pitch count, but how many times they go through the order. A lot of times guys get to the third time through the order, and then they start to give up a lot of runs just because they're seeing them again. The hitters are seeing them. But as far as velocity and things like that, a lot of guys, stay the same. It's just a matter of the hitters are able to see them more and more and more, and it's a lot easier to hit them.
Does being a former major league pitcher, does that help you empathize with your pitchers?
No, not at all. I tell you, that's a hard.
You do not feel sorry for them. Does it do the opposite sometimes?
Well, it's a hard thing because when they mess up, or when I feel like they ought to be able to do things like I could do it, and they can't, and honestly, they can't do that. Most of them, and that's sometimes the hardest part you got to look at, because it's not me out there doing that, because I could make that pitch on the outside part of the plate, and this kid can't make that pitch on the outside part of the plate. So you got a little give and take with everything that goes on.
Yeah, you have to adjust your mentality a little bit about how to approach it.
Big time. My wife's hardcore. When her stepson, was coming up, and my stepson was coming up, her son, and we were. She was hard on him, and I had to be the nice, the nice guy. And I work, we work together all the time on pitching and stuff. And I've kind of, it's a hard game, and people that, a lot of times you hear criticism by people that never played, because it is a hard game, and people think, oh man, this is easy. It's easy to throw the ball over the plate, but no, it's not. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. It really is.
I mean, pitching and hitting to me are really the two hardest things to do in athletics.
Hitting a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, that's a hard thing to do with a round ball and a little round bat, and you're trying to to hit it. It's tough. It really is.
Now, you grew up in Hartselle. You grew up a Dodgers fan. We'll talk about that in a minute. But at what point did you kind of know, like, hey, pitching is the route that I need to go? I'm good at this, and I want to pursue this as a career.
Well, I guess it goes back to, we were talking about this at a camp I was just at this past weekend, a dual baseball camp I went to many, many years, and I think that's where everything kind of got going for me. My ninth grade year, I was 85, 86 off the mound, and then kind of gradually got, better and better. And, I signed to go to the University of Tennessee. That's where I was going to play. And Todd Helton was there, and all these guys, the first 2 years they, went to the World Series, and that's kind of where it started their program up and getting going. And, I was actually going to Tennessee to play both ways. Todd pitched at that time too, and I was going to play third, first, and, so I think it was at that point, I guess, when I, after that I got drafted, and then had to make a decision what to do. And I knew I wasn't going to go into pro ball and hit, even though I was a decent hitter, but I wasn't like a lot of the guys I've been at these places with and watched and stuff like that. But, I think it's, it tells you a lot about like, Shohei Ohtani and all these guys now that can do both. That's amazing how he can throw it 100 mile an hour and he can hit, it's nuts. But, I think you just, I got into pro ball, and it was one of those things, let's focus on one thing and get going. And but I think you got to learn every position as you're growing up and be able to play every position. Yeah.
Now, you got introduced to Major League Baseball pretty quickly. I mean, your first game, you're facing one of the greatest pitchers in the history of baseball, and Roger Clemens.
Right.
The July
28th,
1997.
1997.
Take us into that and paint a picture for us about what that was like.
Well, let's go back to middle school. So
Okay.
back in middle school, you have these. I don't know if you remember all these T-shirts had these big heads on it, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I had the Jose Canseco 40-40 club, yeah, and strawberry,
Yeah. So it was neat how they had those. So my
Yeah.
two favorite Warhurst guys are Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
And so all the way growing up, anybody Roger Clemens, Texas and throw the ball hard and could pitch, and then Boston and stuff like that. But I was actually in Tacoma, Washington, in AAA. I was only in AAA for like 2 weeks. I was there for a very, very short time, and I was in AA right before that, and I was like 15-2 or 15-3 in AA, and then went up to AAA to throw one game. And I kind of had an idea because with the Brewers, pitching was they had some guys get hurt here and there, and and I never even went over during spring training. That's the funny thing. I never went over during big league spring training camp to even meet coaches, pitch, do anything. But anyway, went to AAA, one start, 9 complete game, one run, and then after the game, manager tells me, hey, you're going to the big leagues, and I'm, so you're meeting the team in Detroit, of all places. Detroit, there's so much history in Detroit too, Tiger Stadium and all this.
That's where you went and met the team.
I met the team in Detroit.
Hold on just a second now. What were you feeling at that point when you get called? I mean, this is it, man.
This is it.
You get called up. What was your thought process like then?
Well, it was first thing you do, call your parents. Call parents, let them know, and and then call my high school baseball coach, Coach Booth, let him know, and so it was. It's kind of surreal. I mean, just everything you work for growing up. Very few people get that opportunity, and I'd worked my butt off, and then all of a sudden now here you're going to be in the big leagues. I'm 22 years old, so you're thrown to the wolves. I guess and then going back to Clemens, you talk about that day, July 28th. So I met the team in Detroit, and then we're flying back to Milwaukee the next day, and so it's a day-night doubleheader, and I'm actually going to throw the first game of the doubleheader. And didn't even have a clue who we were playing. Didn't even look, didn't pay attention or anything until actually I got to Detroit. And figure out, everybody starts, oh, hell, they brought you up here to throw against Clemens. You're throwing against Roger Clemens' first game in the big leagues. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. But, my mom, dad, my mom, she's like, hey, just do the best you can, and we know you're probably not going to win, but do the best you can. And
such confidence in you. Yeah.
Such confidence in me. And, and it kind of goes back, the way that day turned out. Nowadays you just have so many cameras, at ballparks. You have so many scouting reports. Everything that pitcher is going to do, tendencies, hitters' tendencies, pitchers' tendencies. Back then we didn't have scouting reports, unless you had a scout that was at a game that watched you in the minor leagues or something like that. So you get called up, and those hitters have no idea what you're throwing. And I'm kind of, pitchers at the advantage, when it comes to that, because it's tough on hitters, especially in the big leagues like that. Yeah.
Well, were there butterflies when you stepped on the mound? I mean, what were the emotions going on when you first took the mound?
Well, very, very. I guess anytime I've ever stepped on the mound in a big league game, nervous. And I think you should be, and you get those nerves out, real very quickly. But first batter of the game, Otis Nixon. First pitch, double down the line, left field line of all places. He just kind of flipped it out there and hit it. And I hear about it all the time from him. But so then next pitch, he ended up still in third base. So from that point then, it was funny because I ended up striking out the next three guys. Joe Carter, John Olerud, and Delgado. Struck them out back to back to back. Carlos Delgado back to back to back. And,
And you had 12 strikeouts.
I had 12 strikeouts, which was nuts. I really didn't realize what was going on until, it was a 1-0 game, and you kind of get into the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, and they're like, "How you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel?" They've never seen me pitch before, all these coaches and stuff like that. And I only really knew one guy on the team, Mike Fetters, which was the closer, technically the closer, but he ended up, he came in to close that. He came in and closed that game out for me, and the only reason I knew him was because of my agent. But, at the end of the day, struck out 12 guys, one hit, and beat Clemens 1-0. And it was one of those things where it was just, it's kind of the dream world, I guess, and just one of these things you grow up, you grow up dreaming about facing somebody you idolize, and all of a sudden you end up beating him 1-0 in the big leagues in your very first game.
And he came over and signed your jersey.
He did. Yeah. It was really cool because he won a Cy Young that year also. I think he had won 5 Cy Young. He signed it, when he signed my jersey, 5 Cy. He had won 5 Cy Youngs at that time, and he was really cool about it because he wasn't on a great team. He was on a bad team. He got beat like 2 or 3 times that year, 1-0, already. And but he was real nice. Came over, got the jersey, shook my hand, introduced himself to me, and and I guess he couldn't get enough of it because it was on SportsCenter all night long. But talking about Clemens, being my idol and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard a story about him one time that when he was pitching, he doesn't even notice the crowd. So I want to talk to you about that. I mean, when you're up there, and I can't even imagine. I mean, that's probably like my biggest fear of like throwing out a first pitch at a game or something like that. But I mean, are you just absolutely just locked in? When you get up there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it's more, games that you don't have a lot of people in the stands. Let's say you have 15,000 people in the stands. You can kind of hear a little bit more people. But when you have 60,000 people in the stands, you really don't hear anything. I think the movie For the Love of the Game, if you ever saw For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner, I think that's kind of the epitome. I mean, it's just, you tune everybody out and it's just you and the catcher and you go. And if you're not doing that, you're probably going to get your rear end handed to you,
Would you rather pitch in front of 50,000 instead of 9,000?
100%, yes. I think that's, and I always tell people this because they're always like nervous or think, man, everybody's not always watching. There's so many things going on at games and stuff like that. I mean, you now on TV and
now
all that.
They're not. They're looking at their phones.
They're looking for phones and this and that. But I mean, most of the time people don't have a clue what's going on, man. But yeah, with more people in the stands, I think it's just it's a lot more fun to me. I mean, you're competing and you're there, at the highest stage, and you got a lot of people watching you. And then, when you don't have a lot of people, somehow you hear that little heckler.
I was going to say, did you ever have to deal with that? How did you deal with it? I mean, was it ever like really bad where it just really distracted you?
It was funny. The only time I was, in my 98, which my second year in the big leagues, warming up in Philadelphia at Veterans Stadium, and Philadelphia fans, heck, they booed Santa Claus, But I think you hear those guys. You hear a lot of things in Philadelphia and New York that you've never heard before. Some of the words that come out of their mouth. But especially even them being in a Boston Yankees series, it's totally. I mean, it is crazy. The way the fans and everybody, the way they interact with each other and the way they yell at players. They respect the game though, but I mean that's part of it, man. They get after you.
So that's a real thing. I mean, like now it's Citizens Bank Park, I guess, in Philadelphia. I mean, that's going into that venue. It's going into the Lions Den, right?
It is, and I think it was which I don't even watch a lot of baseball, but last night they were talking to. Oh my goodness! Hit the home runs to Schwarber, and about getting cheered in Atlanta. It's like, man, crap, you got cheered in Atlanta. Because it just don't happen. Yeah. You heard, when the Francisco Lindor came out, to be introduced. He's Mets and Braves fans don't like the Mets.
Polar Bear got booed.
Yes, absolutely. So he was, so he got. So that's kind of how it is, and I think. Out of all the ballparks all around, the country, St. Louis is one of the best because as a opposing player playing St. Louis, if you make a great play, they're going to cheer you.
Yeah.
And you just don't see that a lot.
That's neat. Yeah. Tell me about Milwaukee, man. I've never been to Milwaukee. I love traveling over all over the United States, but I've never been. What's that like? What's living in Milwaukee like? What are the people like? I know it's a big baseball town, but
well, I'll just say this: Wisconsin. My best friend's in Wisconsin. Still in Wisconsin a lot, but Wisconsin's kind of like Alabama. It's very, very low key, very friendly people. They do anything for you. They support you. That fan base in Milwaukee, let's just say the whole state of Wisconsin, but Milwaukee's it's an unbelievable city. You need to go if you've never been. And just the way the Bucks, you got the Bucks there, you got the Brewers, and then about 2.5 hours away, you got Green Bay. So, but they support their players, and it's a neat city that a lot of breweries, a lot of small restaurants, pubs, and things like that. Players go out, and nobody will bother you. They'll go out and hang out with you and have a beer with you or whatever. So it's a good time.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Yount and Mulder and those guys?
I was around Yount. I was around Robin a good bit, because he was always in Milwaukee, and and I didn't get a chance to be around Paulie till I was opposing player, and he was a hitting coach, on another team, and just sitting at the bar having a drink with him or something like that, and talking baseball. But there's a lot of history, man. There's I don't know if you ever seen it. You need to go watch it. This talks about the '82 Brewers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that documentary that was done, and I'm friends with a lot of those guys that I do. They used to come in and help me with my camps and stuff like that. From Cecil Cooper to to Mike Caldwell to Jim Ganner, all these guys, and man, they love each other. Some of the stories that I could sit and tell you that back in the old days, that they pranks that they play on each other, and the camaraderie, the team, and stuff like that. Man, they had a good time.
Yeah. What's Yount like?
Robin's a good dude. He is he stays off to himself a little bit, and you don't see him a lot. He lives in Arizona, and you don't see him a lot. When I was there, but he would come in every once in a while and do stuff for Mr. Seeley, or come in and throw the first pitch out. But he was always in spring training.
Yeah.
Always there during spring training and stuff like that. And the Brewers spring training is in Arizona, and so it's you kind of got the best of both worlds, cold, and warm there in Arizona. And back when I was playing in Milwaukee, it was County Stadium outside, and it's snow. It might snow in the middle of April and snow, 3 or 4 inches. So
who is your best friend on the team?
Gosh, man, I tell you what, there was a lot of guys that that I hung out with, from David Weathers to Bob Wigman, Chad Fox. When I was the pitchers kind of stayed to themselves and everything. And it was funny. My wife and I were watching a documentary on, and I don't watch, like I said, watch a lot of baseball, but Jim Abbott. So Jim came in '99, and this is the end of his career. And he was. He came in, and I hung out when he got there. I hung out with him every day. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, be, you see how hard somebody like that works. I mean, he worked his rear end off, and then we go play golf, and he's got one arm, and hitting the ball further, than any of us, and and then in spring training, first time he came up to hit, doubling the gap, and I'm like, man, this guy's got one arm, and can do the things that he's doing. So, and I think that kind of helped me, is just watching his mentality of. How he worked and how hard he worked, and that was one of the guys I wanted to be around a lot. Yeah.
What was probably overall your favorite thing about the Milwaukee experience?
Well, I think the people. I think the people that were involved, the staff, the administration, the people, the general manager, the managers, and things like that. They always treated you like family. Mr. Seelig, I could pick up the phone right now and call, and he would call me back within 15 minutes. And very, very nice man, and his family ran it forever. His daughter took it over. Wendy took it over after he became commissioner, and but just a good family, and that atmosphere. They'll take care of you. And I think one of the biggest things that I messed up, because there was new people coming in, new general manager, new manager. Davey Lopes came in, and I went in and asked to be traded. It was one of those things, grass ain't always greener on the other side, and there's a lot to be said with playing one place your whole career, but I was, got traded to Cleveland, and then, different places. But Milwaukee, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut and I could have stayed in Milwaukee forever.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned, we did an article on you for Talegate magazine, which is, we're about to release that, and but you had mentioned that those Indians teams, and I started looking at the rosters, man. You're talking about, and you said it, bona fide stars. I mean, Kenny Lofton, Jim Thome, Omar Vizquel, Travis Fryman. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does.
Tell me about those teams, because those teams had more success than your Brewers team. Right. They were perpetually on the cusp, or if not in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, it was neat there in Milwaukee. I'll never forget. I really didn't realize how substantial it was. I got traded to Cleveland. Then very first day in Cleveland, after we were on the road and got back, just at the gas station, and nobody just knew exactly who he was. They knew everything about their players, and I was like, man, that's crazy. But they had, I want to say, 452 consecutive sellouts or something at that stadium at that time, which was unheard of. And man, they supported it. It was crazy. And but those teams were, you talk about, Charles Nagy, Chuck Finley, Dave Burba, the pitching staff, Sabathia came in, and my second year, so CC came in, and I went to the bullpen, and he, started, and you talk about Juan Gonzalez, Manny Ramirez. I mean, you can go Kenny Lofton, right down the line. David Segui, people don't remember David Segui. David got traded in there. You had Sandy Alomar Jr. catching. You had Robbie at Alomar at second.
Yeah, Robert. I mean, you got Hall of Famers.
Oh, my goodness. All the way around, it's Hall of Famers. And you just, at that point in time, I don't think you really, everybody's good, but you don't realize what's behind you. I don't think there's ever been a team put together like those teams. You know?
Is Tommy as nice of a guy as I think he is?
He's the best. I mean, just an old country guy. He's from Illinois, Peoria, and just a great guy. He'd do anything in the world for you. And, he had a great career. I tell you what, man, so happy for him. And but everybody loved him. And at that time, Charlie Manuel was around. And he was with Charlie for all the way through the minor leagues and stuff like that. And Charlie's a big old country guy, too. And guys up there, they were great. I don't think, there's very few guys I ever played against or with that were you just didn't want to be around.
Yeah. We talked about people that have influenced you pitcher-wise. We talked about Abbott. We talked about Sabathia. But, I'm interested in this. What about, changing pitching coaches? Is that hard sometimes? Because, you got different philosophies, and can a pitching coach ruin you? Can a pitching coach make you better? How do you kind of navigate that as you're moving from team to team?
It's funny you ask that, because I think it could hurt you, actually. In my first 3 years in the big leagues, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 different pitching coaches, I think, in my first 3 to 4 years in the big leagues. And, and all of them do have different, but they all kind of knew me. They were the first 2 or 3 I had come through the minor leagues and were up and saw me pitch and knew me. And then you get a guy that maybe comes in with a new regime, comes in and don't understand. He's still learning. You're in spring training, don't understand you, and maybe he's trying to get you to do things that you've never done before, and you've had success. And you'd be Mariano Rivera wouldn't be Mariano if he wouldn't have messed around the outfield trying to throw that cutter in a different way, But you try things, you go back to it, but sometimes when you're young, you don't, you're a young player, you're kind of influenced that way, and you don't want to tick a coach off, you want to try to do what they do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't gel, sometimes you need a pitching coach to come over and talk to you for a second and go back. And I think in 2000, when I was there, the new people came in, it just wasn't a gel with the pitching coach and with everything going on. And, the bullpen pitching coach I'd known all the way up, and he was great, but, a bullpen pitching coach don't have he can't have all the say-so that, the main pitching coach has.
Yeah.
So it can affect you.
What are they trying to do? I know they're trying to make you the best pitcher that you can be, but are they mostly trying to instill confidence in you? Are they trying to introduce more pitches in your arsenal? Is it kind of a mixed bag of things?
It can be a mixed bag of things with different pitching coaches. I think sometimes, I always tell people this, if I'm a pitching coach, let's say you got bases loaded, full count, and the pitching coach runs out to the mound and it's like, hey, you need to throw a changeup right here. And he never pitched I hate to say he never pitched in the big leagues. It's kind of hard for me to be like, well, why is he, he telling me that? He ain't never done that before, in that moment or whatever. So I think a lot of times it's just respect for the people that, are around you. But, I think sometimes the pitching coach can be the worst enemy, I guess. Sometimes, you go back and you look at Greg Maddux, all these great, Maddux, Glavine, Smoltz, all these guys, Avery, they were there in Atlanta. And, Leo Mazzoni would just, he was great. Leo Mazzoni is one of the best pitching coaches people think. But, Maddux would sit over and throw a bullpen. I've sat there and watched it, and he don't say a word to him, Because those guys, once you get to that point, a lot of times you know what you're doing. You just need somebody to maybe just one word or one key point or something, and rather than throwing a lot of stuff at you.
At one point, do you decide, like we talk about Rivera as an example, he basically had 2 pitches.
Right.
But at what point do you decide, hey, I'm gonna add this pitch to my arsenal? Is that just kind of a thing of feel, or how do you?
I think it's a thing of confidence too, because sometimes you've had success and you just don't want to go out in a game and just throw a new pitch, or you work on it and then all of a sudden you've had success and you go out and you maybe give up runs trying to do something different than you've always done. So spring training is a lot of times you work with something like that. I think a lot of times guys get toward the end of their career and they'll try to come up with something different, or drop down lower, or try to, like you said, do a different pitch or something like that to hopefully reinvent the wheel.
I would have been a submarine pitcher in my, Quisenberry.
Right. And you'd be surprised right now how many people are looking for submarine guys, because it's different. You just don't see it. It's a different angle coming. But, it's now the game, like I said, the game's changed so much. You have so many cameras and this and that. I mean, it don't matter anything with guys, Everybody's looking for velocity and stuff right now.
Now I'm going to geek out for a second, okay? I've got 4 fantasy baseball teams. I'm going to admit that I've got a problem. But but one thing I've noticed is, and this may be true, this may just be an observation that I've seen, just playing fantasy baseball. But like I've noticed that like when a new pitcher comes in, maybe those first couple games they'll have a lot of success, and you'll be like, wow, this guy's fanning them, and he's I may need to pick him up, and then. But it seems like that third game, they start to kind of figure things out. Is that commonplace that a rookie comes in and you don't know what to expect, and they're having success, and then they kind of settle in. The batters kind of figure them out a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's going back to like what I was saying, the scouting reports. Even though you do have, but once they can get at the big league level, get those scouting reports and different things, and see that it's it is a lot different. But I think it was, I forgot who it was I was listening to. They were talking about, it was last night, one of the pitchers who was talking about facing somebody who was tipping these pitches. It was a pitcher with the Mariners, I think is who it was. And, you could go through and start tipping your pitches, and sometimes you don't even really know it. And the other team's been watching you do it, and nobody's picked it up on your team,
Are they just constantly looking for tendencies?
They have guys that are, now they have all these guys sitting there watching cameras, just people that are paid to try to pick up tendencies.
Wow.
Yeah, just to give you an advantage, and used to be people trying to pick up signs, how, what the signs are, and now everything's, a lot different, with, the pitcher's getting the sign from the catcher and, in the ear and all that. So it makes it a little bit different.
How important is it to have that sort of camaraderie with the catcher too? I mean, that's a big deal, and I think that the catcher is very, very underrated in baseball. That the importance of the catcher.
Well, me building a team, that's the first position I'm going to is catcher, and I think that's the most important position because they're controlling. Not only they're controlling your whole pitching staff, they're controlling everything going on the field, and they're your general, like quarterback on the football field, but. I was fortunate. I had, when I first got called up, I had Mike Matheny, great catcher. Jesse Levis was their backup catcher. Then I go to Cleveland, I got Sandy Alomar Jr., and Einar Diaz, which caught in the big leagues forever, backup catcher. Then I go to Texas, you got Pudge, and, and Bill Hasselman, which is the backup catcher. So all these teams, it's funny, all these teams I played on, then Jason Varitek there in Boston, and you had Mirabelli was the backup catcher there. So
you had an embarrassment of riches at catcher. I mean, unbelievable.
I did, and it's funny though. All these teams that you look at like that, usually, I think the backup catcher is the key because a lot of times the backup catcher is the one communicating more with you about things, and even though he's not catching you all the time, but he's communicating more with you about things, helping the starting catcher out. It's kind of like a bench coach, and he helps the manager out more than anything.
Why is it hard for catchers to be great hitters?
Wow, it's 162 games in the big leagues, and you're beat up, you're tired, and then you're having to hit too, and people don't realize the catcher, he's going catching bullpens, working with all the pitchers, and then he goes and does his hitting, so I mean it's a tiring, man.
You think it's a fatigue thing?
It is, I think so.
Okay.
I think not only physical, I think mental fatigue too, just and then if he struggles, I mean Pudge was a great hitter. Pudge was a great hitter, probably one of the best hitting catchers, ever. And, he was, he was a little different than those guys. He focused a little bit more on hitting and not as much as the catching part of it for the pitchers. But just didn't have that camaraderie, but great hitter, great catcher. And like guys like Mike Matheny that became a big league manager and stuff like that. That's all they cared about. They didn't care if they hit 200. They wanted to take care of their pitching staff.
Is it kind of a unicorn just to be great at both? I mean, where you're a great,
It's very unusual. Very unusual to be great at both, and
Piazza bench,
Piazza, and Piazza.
Now Cal Raleigh,
Cal Raleigh. I mean, you wonder how long Cal Raleigh, if he keeps doing that, how long it would be before they move him to first base or just DH or something like that.
Yeah.
And, because they want him to last, and him squatting down, knees and everything, getting beat up and stuff like that. It'll take a toll on you.
You played in an era of power hitters. I mean, when I think about Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, Griffey, who was the toughest batter you faced?
Well, most people don't realize Glenn Allen Hill. If you said that name,
that's your buddy too.
That's
right?
my buddy, man. I tell you what, every year I hear that. Me and him do interviews all the time about it. But he hit a ball in Chicago over the street on top of the roof. And it was estimated 500. It was further than 500 feet, but it was they didn't have all that stuff now. But it's like the 14th longest home run in Major League history. But he crushed it. He hit me very, very well. But Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, during that time, 98 when they were going for the record and doing all that, it was a good time, pitching against those guys.
So give me one. I mean, it wasn't Glenn Allen Hill?
Well, I mean, Glenn. He hit everything I threw. But as far as a tough out, I would say Ken Griffey Jr. was one of the toughest outs to get.
How do you approach pitching to that guy?
Man, it's tough. I mean, he had several home runs off of me, but you just go right after him, man. I mean, I think they're so used to guys trying to pitch around them and stuff, and I think it kind of fools them when you go right after them. Tony Gwynn, another one, just throw it down the middle and let him hit it, and he's going to hit. He ain't going to strike out, he's going to put the ball in play somewhere. So just make something happen.
But it's a mental game up there. I mean, not only it's a game of strategy, but it's also, I mean, you've got to be almost overpowering, toward the batter. I mean,
you do, and if you show any any weakness, I mean, you pay attention a lot of times if you're watching on TV. And sometimes they don't get to it quick enough, but how a hitter is looking out at the pitcher. Sometimes they're just trying to play a mind game with you. And as a pitcher, sometimes you don't want to, look off in days. You want to sometimes just look at the hitter, man. Show them you have no fear with what you're doing.
Yeah. What do you think about Soto's little dance that he does?
Well, now it's funny nowadays, stuff like that. It goes nowadays, but back then you don't.
That wouldn't work.
No, you never did anything like that. Back in the day, it was. You remember Bob Gibson, guys like that. Man, they'd throw it at your, throw it right up in your ear hole. They would do it in a heartbeat, and the game's changed.
What do you think about that? I mean, Henderson was kind of the forerunner with that. I mean, doing this right here, and then the Y. Yeah. I mean, he would almost go into the dugout.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, Ricky was, and I had the same agent as Ricky, so I mean, I knew all about Ricky, and but I gave up. I was telling this story the other day to a group, and only time I've ever thrown a curveball to start a game was to Ricky Henderson as a leadoff hitter of a game, and just because I gave up a home run first pitch, fastball home run, and but yeah, Ricky would do the little twirl and turn all the way around on it, and but it was Ricky, and I mean he wasn't doing it to show you up. It was just what he did.
What do you think about that now? What do you think about bat flips and just other things? The way the game's changing a little bit. Are you still kind of old school?
I am, but I'm kind of one of those guys that understand because now coaching. You want, you're on the coach side now and you're watching guys and you don't want it to be where it's just miserable for them. You want them to have fun.
Yeah.
And they have fun doing those things, man. And I tell them, all the time, do what, have fun, do it the right way. They hit a double, they get to second, they got a sign or whatever they're, doing back to the dugout, or, they hit a home run, they come back in the dugout and, you see guys put a jacket on or put a helmet on or do something crazy, a chain on. And, And but they're having fun with it, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it ought to be about. And I think that actually it makes them more of a team actually because they're actually gelling together and having fun.
Yeah. One thing that bothers me is when people open up their jerseys.
It drives me insane.
I don't like it at all. I mean, I can handle some jewelry. I can handle. I don't like like a bunch of jewelry and all that kind of stuff. And I don't like when players are wearing those rope necklaces, back in your day. But I just don't like when the jersey. Now I'm gonna wear my shirt like that to work, but I mean, I don't like when it's open at the top and you're almost seeing everybody's chest. I just think tighten up a little bit.
And I think you'll hear about that too. But during the home run derby contest, you saw how guys come up to hit. And they had their shirts down, hats backwards, this and that, And Ken Griffey used to, hit with his
I'm
hat
okay
back.
with that, the home run derby.
Yeah, well, I was. I didn't like how Chisholm had his jersey untucked all the way down and this and that, and I just thought it was kind of, disrespect. And you'll hear a lot of guys say that they think that's disrespectful. It don't matter anytime you're out there on the field doing something, respect the game, respect it, and that goes a long ways. But
what happened to stirrups, man? Like nobody.
wow,
Look at that. This was not on my question list, but we're here.
Yeah.
We've arrived. What's happened?
Well, nobody even knows what stirrups really is. Now it's a sock. Now which my guys wear their pants up, a lot of them. But now it's a sock that looks like a stirrup, but it's all one piece. And back then, we used to have a sanitary that went under a stirrup. You put, you put it on, and you had the white showing, and then you had. But no, that's obsolete now, man. It's gone out the door.
What happened to them?
There's no telling, man. Guys want to just do their thing, man. They have these long pants and different things.
Where'd you wear your pants?
It's according if I won that game or lost that game. I was like one of these guys. I wore mine up a lot when I was in Cleveland and Milwaukee. I wore them down, but it's hard for big guys. Big guys, man, it's hard to wear your pants up.
Yeah.
You look even bigger on TV.
I don't like when the pants come way down here like this. My son is 6, and we talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
We talk about uniforms a lot, and he wears his up here at the knee,
Yeah.
and shows his socks,
Right.
and we were talking about the other night, and I was trying to say if I was playing, who would I wear my pants like, and we decided on Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
But I looked and Machado's pants are down here at the bottom of their shoe, and
Well, it's talking about that. Now I see guys like I was doing a showcase the other day, and they had it up above their knee, like their pants.
Tatis up above the knee.
Yeah, and I hate that. I think that's I don't like that. And then
I like Tatis, but I don't want to wear my pants up.
And back then, Manny Ramirez, Manny wore his pants baggy and over his. So people didn't realize this. Manny got fined $1,000 every game for wearing his pants the way he wore his pants. The Indians, they paid it back then. And but when you walk out of a major league club,
$62,000 a year.
When you walk out of a clubhouse, you have a big life-size picture of a uniform guy, and it shows you how you're supposed to dress. And guys, back then, guys, and I'm sure guys still do to this day, get fined for certain things that nobody even realizes.
If I was a guy that was 18 years old, that was an elite prospect, thinking about going to the major leagues, what would you say to that guy that maybe I need to know about being a major league player? I mean, something that maybe your everyday person doesn't know, maybe about the grind or about being on the road or travel or something like that. How would you advise them?
I don't know if it's what nobody would know. I think the big thing you hear is just respect. Just respect the game. And nowadays, I just don't think guys respect the game. And what I mean by respect, play the game hard, play the game the right way. When you get out on that field, run in and off the field, and and hustle. And I think nowadays you see a lot of showcase baseball, travel baseball, and it's more, individualized rather than team-oriented stuff. And but baseball's a grind, and I think a young guy getting drafted, you're gonna have a lot of ups and downs. And the one thing that you can do is you don't want it to be a roller coaster. You want it to be an even kill all the time. And I think guys. They're, the way they handle themselves, when things are going good, and when things are going bad, you don't ever want to know if they're doing good or bad. And I think that's the key to have a good career and be a good player in the big leagues.
How hard is it to go through a 162 game schedule, man? Because you're just traveling all the time. You're in different hotels. If you're married, you're away from your family. It's just constant for about 7 months, and then you get to go home.
Yeah, it is tough. You only get 21 off days. People don't realize that 21 off days in the entire major league season, and there's a lot of travel. In the minor leagues, it's not very good. You're on the buses and this and that, and having to get up early in the morning to catch a flight out somewhere. In the big leagues, the travel's not bad. You're taken care of. You leave the ballpark on a travel day. After the game's over, you're at the airport. Used to, we would, you'd go in the gate, you'd go to the plane, and, you'd just hop on the plane, never touch your luggage, anything, you're off, going to the next city. So travel, it is tough being on the road all the time, but man, things, sometimes I wish I could go back and enjoy it more,
Yeah.
honestly, and instead of making it such a grind.
What was your favorite city to visit? We mentioned Philadelphia and New York, but
I love Chicago. Chicago was a great place, man. It's just a lot of good food, and you can walk, shopping, anything you want to do. It was, and then the history, Wrigley Field, playing at Wrigley or Comiskey or whatever. It was. I was a big Chicago fan. I loved it there.
that's not the first time I've heard that from a former major league player. Was Wrigley your favorite field to play at?
It was. I actually pitched pretty well at Wrigley. Gave up a lot of home runs at Wrigley, but I pitched well at Wrigley. And it was a neat place.
Do you have, I know we talked about superstition, and I don't necessarily want to get into superstition, but from a pitching standpoint, do you have sort of a mentality sometimes of, I'm doing better on the road than I am at home, or we can flip that, or, just that, hey, I'm on this hot streak and I need to continue doing the same, staying in those same habits. What's your mentality like as you approach?
Trust me, you see that if you're always told don't pay attention to the newspaper, don't pay attention to the talk shows and stuff like that, because then you hear all those things when you are doing bad or when you're doing good. But I'm very superstitious, whether it was, doing the same thing every start. If I'd win one game, I was going to try to do the same thing every time, until you lose. Well, eating at the same restaurant, eating the same food. I was weird. You have guys like Turk Wendell. I don't know if people remember that name or not, but he used to come in in between innings and brush his teeth. It was weird. He'd come in and brush his teeth in the dugout before he went back out. But I would always untie my shoe and retie my shoe every inning. It was the weirdest thing ever. That was one of my little...
Win or lose, you did this?
I did this every inning of every game I pitched. It was
Where'd
weird.
that come from?
I have no idea. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing I ever did. I don't know why I did that or what. I don't know if I thought my shoes were getting loose or whatever. But
he brushed his teeth every inning.
He did. He brushed his teeth every inning.
Okay, so
and he was a reliever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird, but guys have weird things, man. Whether it's wearing the same shirt under their jersey or same sock, different things. But guys get very superstitious. Same bat, or trying to borrow somebody's bat and they have a good one, then they'll break it and they'll borrow another bat from you. So.
Well, and it also seems like you guys are having fun. It's just a bunch of kids.
It is
playing a game they love.
It is, and people ask me, well, if you had to go back and do it over, what do you look back at and wish you could have done more of? I think I would say just enjoy the game more, enjoy it more, enjoy the time more, because it's, it's just like anything, man. It can be taken away from you. You could be done. Somebody's going to tell you can't play at some point in time. It's just a matter of when they tell you that, and I think you just wish you would have had more fun and took it all in and enjoyed it more, and done some of the, done more things when you're there, and maybe even more pictures or more, or visiting a place when you're on the road, or doing this with a teammate or something.
Yeah, soaking in while you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you have any? I was talking to somebody about this morning. Did you have any issues after you got done playing of like, hey, it's over now? And I think that's a real thing, man. Like the people that like, and I dealt with it at some level because I quit after my 11th grade year. Yeah. And my dad made this statement. He was like, "If you quit, you'll never get over it." And I really, honestly, I really haven't. Right. And I think I struggled, in my post-playing career. Is that a real thing that major league players deal with?
I think so.
Did you deal with that?
I don't know how much I dealt with it like that. My body, I was beat up at that time. I had a line drive hit back in my hand and broke my hand. I really, I think that's pretty much what ended my career was on my throwing hand. But you do it so much, and then you'll see guys that take a little time off. You do it so much, and you're like, oh my goodness, and then you want to get back into it because 3 years old, that's what I started playing. That's all I've ever known, and now coaching, me doing this, and now, I've been involved in some form of baseball since I was 3 years old. Whether it's working with somebody or being a TV guy or or coaching or this or that. I've been involved with it in some way since I was 3 years old, and it's a love-hate relationship, I guess. And you love it sometimes when you're doing it, and then you hate it sometimes because that's all you're ever doing, and you just don't ever have any time for anything else. But it's a great game, and you do see guys a lot of times they try to figure out what their what they're going to do with the rest of their life.
Finding purpose.
Yeah, find a purpose in the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And, and you see some guys are not meant to coach. Some guys can coach, some can't. Some guys can teach. There's guys that John Lieber, which is pitched in the big leagues forever. He and I had done a couple of camps together. Some guys just know throw a slider when it's time to throw a slider. Or, they couldn't teach you how to throw a slider, but they know how to throw a slider, it's, I think it's just learning yourself, I guess, once you get done with the game. And but I try to stay associated with it in some way, especially at the major league level. I still stay associated with certain teams and doing things here and there.
What's the common thread of a major league player? I mean, what are the qualities that make a major league player versus people that don't make it?
Well, I think it's that that roller coaster ride. I think it's just guys that don't let things bother them. Guys that baseball teaches you a lot of great qualities. When things are not going to go good a lot more than they're going to be great. And it's guys that know how to handle that, know how to. And I don't think that's something you teach. I think that's something you're born with. And I can sit here all day and tell a kid that I'm coaching, look, you just went 0 for 4. Don't let it bother you. What are you going to do the next day? Are you going to come out and go 0 for 4 and make an error in the field, or are you going to come out and do something that's going to help your team win and that's going to make you better? And I don't think you don't see that a lot nowadays. I think you see where when guys are struggling, they'll go through a big time drop. And they'll just keep it going. And then when they're doing great, they'll just, like I said, that roller coaster ride. But I think the guys that play in the big leagues, it's just a different mentality up there. The way their brain, the Bryce Harper, at 17 years old playing junior, graduates a year early from high school and goes play junior college baseball and hits 30 home runs. It's just a different mentality.
Is it true that one of the most important things, and to your point, is to not think? I mean, I teach Little League baseball. I coach Little League baseball, and and I talk about this because I had the yips, and man, that was one of the biggest struggles of my life. So I've dealt with that. Right. But as I've analyzed that, and I've thought more about that, and about teaching the game of baseball, like when you field a ball at shortstop and you throw the ball over to first, you need to be concentrating, but you don't need to be thinking about anything. Right. And is it kind of the art of not thinking, to your point, and just like letting your body take over? And I mean, because I tend to overthink everything in my life, and so is that part of it, is just being able to get in a zone and just not think and let your body take over?
Yes, I think so. You see, I was with Rick Ankiel, when all that went on with Rick.
And he had the yips, right?
He did, and and it wasn't that he, with him it was a little different because he was going through at a young age. He was thrown there. He was in the division playoffs and as a rookie and all this, and had a lot of pressure on him and stuff. And sometimes it can be pressure, people putting pressure on you and stuff like that, and it's just too much of it at a young age, especially at the major league level. But you have Chuck Knobloch, Steve Sachs, guys like that. And I've been around Steve Sachs before, and I was sitting here like that, and a reporter at a place was asking him about that. And what do you say? It happens, to people, and you wonder why. But it's all, a lot of it is mental, that.
But I wonder if and that's the thing, man, is I wonder if it has to do with dads putting pressure. I would like to ask Knobloch and Sachs and Ankiel, what was your relationship with your dad like on the diamond?
See, Ankiel, it's weird you say that because Ankiel's dad was not involved with him at all his whole life. It was just him and his mom. So. And his high school baseball coach was the one that was there, and very low key guy, and it could be somebody sometimes, or it could be somebody not putting enough pressure on you when you're younger. You know?
For me, it was just the amount of pressure that I had on me. And it started my 8th grade year, and I couldn't throw it from me to you. The first time it happened, I threw it in the ground, and I was like, what in the world? And the guy that I was throwing with was the best player in the league, one of my good friends now, but he started laughing at me. Yeah. And I was like, what just happened? And then I just battled it in high school, and man, it was just a tough thing. But I just think, to your point, is just being able to not think and go out there and don't, you don't have to think about every single thing about
Right.
about throwing it over to first or throwing it to the catcher,
Right.
and just have freedom in that.
And if you do it enough, I mean, I guess you do it enough, but those guys do it every day too. You know,
Yeah.
you think you do it enough, and it ain't going to happen, but it does. So it just, you know, it just maybe just one little mental thing that maybe goes on in their life that affects it.
Yeah. How did Ankiel deal with that? I don't want to keep.
Well,
on
it was
about this.
tough. No, it was tough on him because I was there with him, and I was playing catch with him and doing stuff with him and trying to, you know, at that point in time. And then, you know, then he came back. The funny thing is, he came back and was a hitter for 10 plus years in the big leagues and could throw a ball from center field, throw it on a missile to home plate, and throw somebody out. So, you know, it was tough on him. Just the way the media, you know, the way and the media can be it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, they're
you know?
real sweet. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
they will
So,
just
yeah.
wear you out with stuff,
Yeah.
and I mean that's their job though, and
Yeah.
your job is to not let it bother you, and it's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about. I want to talk about William Booth. I mean, you mentioned that earlier, and I mean, man, you talk about an unbelievable coach. How did he influence you at Hartselle?
Well, I tell you what, he was like a dad to me. He growing up and stuff. Actually, he was a math teacher, so he was he taught calculus, AP guy. He was over the AP programs in the state of Alabama for many years, and in 1988, the coach, which I was in like 6th grade at that point in time, the high school coach was there, and his son Mason Booth. Mason was in 9th grade or 10th grade or something like that, and Coach Booth, the coach left, and Coach Booth didn't want somebody else coming in to, you know, to take over because he had coached them guys all the way up through the, you know, little league and all that. So he knew how good they was, and he ended up just taking it over by trying, you know, just kind of thrown to the wolves there in '88. And I'll be honest with you, didn't know a lot about baseball, but you go back to those numbers. He was a math guy, you know, so he's like, his philosophy was, you do it 700 times today, you might get it right 300. Do it 700 times tomorrow, you might get it right 50 more times, 350. You do it 700 next day, you might get it right. There was not a lot of instruction, and it was just reps and reps and reps and reps and reps, and that was his mentality. And we had a lot of good dads around that, you know, coming up through the ranks, and, you know, dads that help. Nowadays, you don't have those dads. You know, they go and help at a high school or something like that. Back then, we had 5 or 6 dads that were, you know, involved with players on the team that were there helping throw batting practice, hitting ground balls, doing different things. And, but he was a big rep guy, you know, and, you know, just kept doing the same things, man. He didn't change his mentality one bit. And, you know, he'd yell at you. He didn't care who you was. He'd yell at me, yell at anybody. But, man, he had a lot of success, you know, all the way through up until he passed away.
What was the one thing he taught you about life that you'll remember?
Just to, you know, every day you're going to be thrown a different battle, and just to grind, and, you know, if you are confident enough in everything you do and you do things the same way all the time, I think that's where people get out. He taught me a lot about routine. I think routine is key for everything, and you know, professional athletes are weird people. And I think that at a young age, I was able to understand, don't change your routine from day to day because of an outcome of a game or an outcome of something that you didn't like. Keep the same routine all the time, and, you know, and good things will happen if you do that. And I was big on that.
Hartselle's a big sports town. I mean, you know, it's a small town, but I mean, they really have had obviously have had a great baseball program, but I mean, it's a big deal in Hartselle.
It is. You know, I was fortunate to, you know, I won 3 state championships while I was there, and then got beat. The best team we had got beat my junior year, got beat in the finals, and but it is, you know, they just, you know, this past year just won it this past year, and you know, and Brad Phillips, which is the new coach there. Brad was at South Alabama and Troy and different places like that. Brad's a good guy that came in and took it over. I mean, you can't imagine coming in behind somebody like that, you know, after all these years, and it took somebody pretty special to be able to do that, and he's handled it very well. And, you know, it's a great program. Hartselle's great. You know, people say it's a baseball town, but they've won so many state championships in softball, and they've won several in football, and you know, in basketball and different things. So it's a very good. They love their sports, put it that way.
Yeah. So who is the one guy that you met across your MLB career that you were just in awe of? Who was the one guy?
Wow, great question, man.
I mean, I know you met Hershiser. You know,
And we
you met
didn't
Yao.
even talk about Oral.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I hate to say that. I mean, I'm gonna say Nolan Ryan. Nolan's one of the best. You know, a pitching coach. He was their special advisor there in Texas and was always in spring training and stuff. But Nolan, a lot of history, and you know, read his books, watched Nolan pitching, and then you know he's that tough farm guy. You know, and you know he's the same guy. If you do, he's gonna throw at you, man. If you ain't gonna like show him up.
Yeah.
But just battle, man. Just no matter what, he'd figure out a way to win.
Yeah. You know, I think he gets some unfair criticism, man. I mean, he had 7 no-hitters.
7 no-hitters.
Like, I mean, I don't even understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
He was one of the all-time greats. You know, I don't understand where any of that criticism comes from, but for you, he was the guy.
Just me meeting somebody and
Yeah.
you're in awe. Yeah, no, I'd say Nolan Ryan.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I really do appreciate this. This has been awesome.
You will.
Wish you the best of luck, and stay at it, man. Keep grinding.
I will try to, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.